I think with this new day and age we're in, Greg, it's going to be really hard to get a coach that's in the playoff. I mean, the window that extends now for that coach trying to win a national championship, coinciding with what you got to do to get your program up and running, I think that's really hard.
Hello and welcome in. It's always college football. I'm your host, Greg McElroy. We appreciate you being here as always. We have done a couple episodes already this week. If you missed them, go back and download them anywhere you get your podcast. Did a top 10 takeaway, including a lengthy conversation about the Penn State and Nittany Lions head coaching jobs. You want to make sure you go back and check out Sunday afternoon's edition. We also had some rapid fire takeaways if you want to revisit those. But today, like we always do on Tuesday, we reveal our updated top 25. We do our own top 25. The AP poll does theirs. Theirs is normally terrible. So we try to do one to bring some nuance to the rankings. We start from scratch every week. We don't just rearrange based on how you played. You won, you move up. You lose, you move down. We start from zero every single week, and we'll give you those updated rankings here in just a moment. We'll also be joined by Stanford Steve of ESPN College Game Day fame and the SV Pod. Stanford Steve does a great job, man. He watches a lot of tape, really into it. Of course, he's got the gambling angle. We're not going to hit as much gambling today. We're more going to talk about Penn State. We're going to talk about the big games coming up this weekend. And then, of course, you can check out our preview show that'll be out at some point here in the next 24 to 48 hours, thereabouts. So make sure you are dialed in here on the Always College Football podcast. Download the podcast wherever you get the podcast. A lot of people are downloading, several of which are not even subscribed. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel whenever you get a chance. If you want to leave a rating, that'd be much appreciated. Our ratings, by the way, people look at them. I asked someone the other day who come up to me and say, why is your rating a 3.9? It's like one of the best college football podcasts out there. I'm like, well, because we got sabotaged by fans that were upset that their team didn't make the playoff. So it's not our fault. And unfortunately, the podcast rating has suffered, but that's okay. Like, we continue to keep on. The rating, at least there for a while, was down to like 3. So we're getting it all the way back up thanks to you. We also appreciate those of you that are joining us via the ESPN College Football YouTube page. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up button if you want to. No problem. If you want to subscribe to that as well, we're well over 1 million followers on that. And when we started, it was about 200,000. So we got a lot. We are moving and grooving here. It's week 8 of the college football season. So let's kick things off with our updated top 25. Okay, at the top of the rankings, it's Ohio State. They're number 1. They were number 1 last week. They're 6-0. They added another impressive win to their resume this past weekend by going on the road to beat a 5-2 Illinois team. They have also gone on the road and beaten a 5-1 top 25 Washington team. And a couple other good wins too. That win against Texas, by the way, that's now improved their strength of schedule. And if you look at where they're at, they're about to get a much needed bye week. But before they do that, they're going to have to go to Wisconsin. I don't think that's going to be a huge problem for the Buckeyes this weekend. We'll go to number 2. It has changed a lot. We've had a bunch of different teams in at number 2. We have now added our third different team in at number 2. It is the Indiana Hoosiers. They are 6-0. Some people are still in see it to believe it mode with Indiana. What the heck more do you need to see is what I'm trying to figure out. This team is winning games by over 33 points a game. They just went to Oregon, knocked off the Oregon Ducks, who are now 5-1. That's one of the best wins of the college football season. They also went to Iowa. Iowa's 4-2. They beat Illinois, who's 4-2, by 50-plus points. Indiana's number 2. Their resume says so, and their eye test says so. Just watch them. They're outstanding. They have Michigan State and UCLA in the next 2 weeks. We'll go next to number 3. It's Miami. Fresh off a bye this past weekend, they drop a spot to accommodate the move for the Indiana Hoosiers. They're still 5-0. Their resume not quite as impressive with what's happened with Florida State. Florida State's now 3-3. Florida's 2-4. Those are 2 pretty good wins for them, or at least we thought they were going to be. But the South Florida win continues to hold up. They're 5-1. And the Notre Dame win continues to get a little better. They're 4-2. They'll get Louisville this week. That's on Friday. They do have 3 road trips on the back half of the schedule at SMU, at Virginia Tech, who they should handle, and at Pitt. Pitt's better. SMU's improving. So 2 tricky road trips, but they got to handle business against Louisville this week first. We'll go next to number 4. It's the Texas A&M Aggies. They are 6-0. That win on the road at Notre Dame continues to strengthen. The Mississippi State win is still holding up. They're 4-2. However, Auburn and Florida, those two teams taking a slight step back, partly because of what A&M did to Florida. But Auburn just 3-3. Those two aren't doing a ton for them, but they still have 4 tricky road games left for A&M at Arkansas and at LSU in each of the next 2 weeks. So we're going to find out a little more about the toughness of A&M mentally going on the road, just like they did against Notre Dame, and handling business against SEC competition the next couple of weeks. At number 5, it's the Ole Miss Rebels. We had them at 3 the last time we did this. We've now dropped them to 5. Why? Because their 2 best wins are LSU. LSU's a good football team, and Tulane, who is both 5-1. But there's some teams in front of them that have done a little more, that have better wins at their disposal in my eyes. And frankly, playing with their food against Washington State didn't do a lot for me. They'll go to Georgia and at Oklahoma in the next 2 weeks. We'll go next to 6. That's the Texas Tech Red Raiders. They are undefeated. 2 really good road wins against fringe top 25 teams, against Utah on the road, who's 5-1. And against Houston on the road, who's 5-1. They also have a decent win against a 4-3 Kansas team. One of the trickier games left on their schedule, though, is at Arizona State. That's coming up this weekend. Texas Tech continues to be the driving force that is in the Big 12. Alabama comes in at number 7. They're 5-1. Another really good win on the road this past weekend at Mizzou, who is also 5-1. They beat Vandy, who's 5-1, and they went to Georgia and beat them. They're 5-1 as well. They'll get Tennessee at home this week before going to South Carolina, before they get a much-needed bye. If they can somehow run the table in this 5-game stretch that includes Georgia, Vandy, Mizzou, Tennessee, and South Carolina, 3 of those 5 on the road, if they can go 5-0 in that, you might as well just punch your ticket to the playoff. They could drop 1, maybe even 2 down the stretch, probably still going to be in the postseason if they can go 5-0 with that 5-game stretch in the middle of the year. At number 8, it's the Georgia Bulldogs. They're up a couple spots for us. They were 5-1 right now. They did beat Tennessee on the road. They're 5-1. Their loss came to Bama. They'll get Ole Miss at home, and then they'll get that much-needed bye. It's going to be very, very beneficial for a team that's a little bit beat up to get that bye week, but they got to take care of business against the Rebels at home first this weekend. At number 9, it's Oregon. They've dropped from 3 to 9 for us. Actually, we had them 4. But we at one point had them 2. They're now all the way down to number 9. Why? Because their best win was at Penn State. Penn State is in free fall. They're 3-3. So technically, based on record, their best win is against Northwestern. Northwestern's 4-2. They're at Rutgers this week. They'll get Wisconsin after that. Then they'll have a bye. They do finish the season, I think, in a couple tricky spots. 2 teams that I got a lot of respect for. So maybe the back half of this schedule for Oregon a little tougher than I originally thought. They'll get SC at home, who's very real. And they'll go to Washington, who also is 5-1 right now. At number 10, huge mover for us this week. They're up double digits. It's the USC Trojans. They knock off Michigan, who is 4-2, but it was the way they knocked off Michigan. It could have been worse. Yes, SC did lose on the road at Illinois. They lost that game by a couple points. They had the lead there with 90 seconds left. They couldn't hang on. But they were their own worst enemy in many cases in that game. So while that is a tough pill to swallow, I think SC remains very real. They'll go to Notre Dame this week before they get a bye. They still have road trips to Nebraska, a road trip to Oregon, so plenty of meat on the bone for SC, but they're way into the top 10 right now, and the power ratings in Vegas support this. SC is very real. While you might not trust them just yet, and by you, I mean the AP and some others, just watch them. This team has a lot of juice. I have them in the top 10 right now. I think it's deserved. At number 11, it's the Oklahoma Sooners. They're 5-1. They did beat Michigan, who is 4-2, just like SC. That's the best win on their resume. They have a really tough stretch coming up. They're at South Carolina, who's in desperation mode before Ole Miss comes to them, and they go to Tennessee. Those 3 games will be tricky. If they could somehow get through those 3 at 3-0, you get the bye, and then you got Bama on the road. So it's tough sledding here down the stretch for Oklahoma, whose second half of the schedule is much tougher than that of the first. At number 12, it's Tennessee. They're 5-1. They won at Mississippi State, who's 4-2, and they beat Syracuse. So not a ton of meat on the bone right now from a strength of record standpoint, but a win at Bama this week can do a ton of good for the Volunteers moving forward. At number 13, it's the LSU Tigers. Not great from a record and resume standpoint right now. Their best win is still at Clemson, who's 3-3. They beat South Carolina this past week by double digits. Could have been worse if they don't turn it over inside the 10. They're 3-3. And they do have a win against a 4-2 Louisiana Tech team. So not a ton right now on LSU's resume, but their schedule strengthens here in a bit. They're at Vandy this week. A&M is at home before they get a bye, and then they play against the Alabama Crimson Tide on the road in Tuscaloosa. At number 14, it's the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. They're 6-0. Strength of schedule, not great. Their best win is against a 4-2 Wake Forest team. Clemson's 3-3. That was a good win as well. They're at Duke this week, and guess what? They're an underdog. They also get Georgia at season's end. So I think Georgia Tech right now, yes, they're at 14. Yes, they deserve to be at 14. They're undefeated. I think they could fall here pretty quickly, though, especially if they don't get a win this week at Duke. At number 15, it's the Virginia Cavaliers. They have a good win on the road at Louisville, who's 4-1. They also started the free fall for Florida State, who's now 3-3. They have a really good chance, if you look at Virginia's schedule, to finish the season maybe 10-2. Like I said, they're 5-1 right now, but you look at their road trips. They have a road trip to Cal. They have a road trip to Duke. Those are two tough teams. They're both pretty solid, but not like those are unwinnable, especially if they've already proven to be able to go to Louisville and get a win. They also have a road trip at North Carolina, and they have a couple tricky games at home. But Virginia's in a really good spot to have an outstanding record at season's end. Why? Because their schedule is just not that difficult. You look at number 16, it's BYU. They're undefeated. Their best win is on the road at Arizona, who's 4-2. A lot of meat still left on the schedule, though. They have Utah this week. They're at Iowa State. They get a bye week. They're at Texas Tech. So BYU's in a good spot right now, but there could be a couple losses coming if they don't get off to a little better start than they did this past weekend. At number 17, it's the Texas Longhorns. They're back in the top 25 after the win against 5-1 Oklahoma. They're 4-2 overall. Still very tough finishing stretch. They still have Vandy. They still at Georgia. I think there's a tricky spot or two when they play against Kentucky on the road and Mississippi State on the road. Of course, A&M comes to them this year. So Texas can very much rebound, but the ice is thin. They have to take care of business at home, and they have to try to steal one on the road between now and the end of the season. At number 18, it's the Michigan Wolverines. Their best win is against Nebraska. That was on the road. Nebraska's 5-1. They'll get Washington this week, which is a massive game for Michigan. I think Washington's very good. That's a quality football team. They did not play very well in the first three quarters against Maryland. They did not play well in the red zone against Ohio State. Now it's a chance for redemption for Washington by going to the Big House to take on a Michigan team that might be licking their wounds a little bit off of last week. They also go to Michigan State the following week. So they're probably going to be 8-3, 9-2 when Ohio State comes to town. Now, I don't know if Michigan can run the table. I think they'll probably drop one at least between now and week 12. But you look at it, things are looking okay for Michigan still with how their schedule sets up down the stretch. At number 19, it's Notre Dame. A lot of people have them a little higher. I'm not yet ready to put them there just yet. A win this week, though, can vault them up significantly. Like I've told you, I like SC a lot. A win against the USC Trojans would take the 4-2 Irish and vault them into the playoff discussion. But right now, their best win's against a 4-2 Boise State team. Or you could make a case that NC State at 4-3 is their second best win. So SC this week's big. They also are at Pitt. So they need Pitt to keep winning. Pitt's looking pretty good right now, and Pitt has improved drastically. But other than that road trip to Pitt, they're going to be a favorite in probably every other game and probably by a decent margin. So they got to take care of business. They got to hope some of those teams down the stretch live up to where they're at right now. At number 20, it's Missouri. Best win is against a 4-3 Kansas and a 3-3 South Carolina. Still a very tough road schedule coming up for the Missouri Tigers. They're at a desperate Auburn team. They're at Vandy. Vandy's pretty good. They'll get a bye. A&M comes to them, and they go to Oklahoma on the 22nd of November. At number 21, it's Vanderbilt, who's 5-1. Their win against South Carolina didn't get much better the last couple weeks. Utah State's their second best win. Those two teams are both 3-3. But Vandy can prove an awful lot here in the next couple weeks. You got LSU coming to them, Mizzou coming to them before they go to Auburn. Auburn go to Texas. Auburn comes to them and then finish at Tennessee. So Vanderbilt, if they can take care of business at home, which is a tall order, that would go a long way into validating the incredible start they've gotten through the first 6 games. At number 22, it's Nebraska. They're 5-1. They have a win against another 5-1 team in Cincinnati. That's a really good win, by the way. the way Cincinnati is starting to play right now. Maryland's 4-2. They also have a win against them. They did lose to Michigan, and they have a couple of games that are very winnable coming up. At Minnesota, very winnable game. Northwestern's not bad. That's at home, though. SC comes to them, and they'll go to what might be a resurgent UCLA team towards the end of the year. At 23 at Cincinnati, we just talked about who they lost to head-to-head, so that's why they're at 23. Nebraska's at 22. They're 5-1, though, with a good win against Iowa State, who's 5-2. And things are looking pretty good for Cincinnati moving forward. If they can take care of us at home, this could be a 10-2 football team because their road trips are at TCU and at Oklahoma State. I'm assuming you probably get one, maybe both of those. Then you got to go to Utah on November 1st, too. So a couple tricky games for Cincy, but I think that their recipe for success is repeatable. We'll go next to number 24. That's Louisville. Louisville has a good win against a 4-2 Pitt team. Louisville is 4-1, by the way, and they also beat a 5-1 James Madison. They're at Miami this week, so a big win this weekend and massive upset would vault them into the top 15 more than likely. They also still host Clemson on the 14th of November, that's Friday, and they go to SMU on the 22nd of November. So if they can steal the SMU game, this Louisville team's got a really good chance of getting to the ACC title game. And at number 25, it's the Washington Huskies. They have a good win on the road at Maryland. It wasn't pretty for 3 quarters, but they found a way to win. They have a Michigan road trip coming up this week. It's a huge game for them. And then Illinois will travel to the West Coast to take them on next week. So this is a team that could be a factor if they beat Michigan this week on the road, because at the end of the year, Oregon comes to them, and that game could have some significant playoff implications. Teams that are first out right now, Utah. Arizona State's their best win. It was convincing. Arizona State was without their quarterback, so I'm withholding judgment just a bit. You beat BYU this week. You're back in the top 25. Illinois drops out of the top 25, even though they have a good win against SC, who's 5-1, and against Duke, who's 4-2. But right now, Illinois, I have them just out. I think they could get back in, but they got to win some games down the stretch. Okay, he's ESPN Game Day. You also have the SV Pod. He's Stanford Steve Coughlin. We also see him on SVP from time to time, and he gives us great winners every single Saturday. What's your record now? Are you above 500 yet?
Yeah, I bet we 1-2 weeks. Last 2 weeks got us back. We're still over 500, but just thought we had it.
Tough sledding.
Like the board this week, though. Like the board this week.
Yeah, you're due. I feel great about you. I would never bet
the
against
dogs
you,
to start
ever.
barking. That's what we need. Underdogs. Come on.
I love it. All right, let's dive in. We'll start with the hot topic of the week. It's Penn State. It's the fact that they're parting ways with James Franklin. Just before we get into the weeds and the nuance of it, what were your thoughts overarching, considering you were there just a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, that's where I wanted to start, Greg. When we're up there, you look at it, and Penn State is in the upper tier of programs, college football, talent, the whole thing. And now they have this idea that they are fully invested. They love telling you how much money they're spending. They love telling you how much money they're making off of parking. The tailgate scene is incredible, and their fans buy 3 spots to have 1 spot so they can set up their table. Like the whole deal. They got the money, and when you look at it, they got James Franklin, the best defense coordinator in the sport. Now he's the highest paid. You got a really good offensive coordinator, facility, the whole and to see it happen now was not as much a surprise to me, because you could, when we were there a couple weeks ago before the Oregon game, and I mean that's what 16 days ago. They're on top of the world with a chance to beat a top ranked team, and they haven't won since. And so you could feel there's enough fans, that fan base is big enough where you're going to start to get, the naysayers. And they were lurking and knowing what this opportunity was. I thought they were going to win the game. I really thought they had the goods to do it. They pry back, they go to overtime, and then you're lost. And then you got to go play UCLA, and you lose. And to see, I think it's since 1967 or so, something with point spreads, back-to-back 20-point favorites, and you lose. And the way this world works now, with getting rid of the guy, I don't know if they're going to search for him, but they know they have the funds and the new deal with Adidas, and alums being loud. It wasn't a surprise to see this because that's as embarrassing a 2 losses as you could have as whatever 2 weeks ago, you're a top 5 team in the country. So I was not surprised at pulling the trigger right now.
I think if you look at last year, everyone wants to point to, well, he won 2 games in the playoff last year, and the pushback on it from those that were against him being their head coach was against who? Okay, we beat Boise and SMU. Great. We won a couple playoff games. It's awesome. But with the game on the line, we made another critical error against Notre Dame that cost us a shot in the title game. So I get it. I also think that this started in 2020. And while nobody wants to acknowledge that, he got that long extension in 21. The people that turned on him, that happened during COVID with the performance of their team that year. And people will point to, well, that was a weird year. That was when people started to sour, and then the messaging and the unique social media things like player drafted in every draft except for 8 since 1967, like stuff like that. And those that make big decisions up there, when they turned on them, it wasn't going to get them back on their side. So the first opportunity they had to actually say, all right, good, we can get rid of them now, they did. So you think there's some truth in that?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe he switched agencies right before that contract. So that was, to your point about, rubbing some people the wrong way that didn't agree with getting the extension. Then they were bad that year too. Micah Parsons decided not to play. Like Maryland went up there and won. And I get it. It was a different day. You weren't playing true road games, but they're under 500. And yeah, you could start and here's the deal. It's like he used his notches in his belt. Like he made moves at coordinator, on both sides of the ball and had success. And then it's got stale, and then he got, like I said, they got him the 2 biggest names at the time of offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. They went out and got players in the portal and spent plenty. They paid the guys following that Michigan, Ohio State mantra of keeping the guys you really want and compensating them, knowing that other schools were going to come after their top players. And for this year, this was it. And to be winless in the Big Ten, I mean, it's as bad as it could go. And that's that. So the immediacy of losing the 3 games in a row, knowing what you mentioned, that there was people that were rubbed the wrong way going back, what is that, 5 years now? Yeah, it was building, and the boiling popped.
Yeah, it makes sense. How do you view this job? Do you like it? Do you think it's every bit as good as those that are saying it's one of the top 5 jobs in America? Like, I don't think it's anywhere near top 5. I think you can make a case it's top 15, maybe top 10. But how do you kind of see it in the landscape?
I grew up in the Northeast, Greg. That program was the face of the Northeast. And when they came calling on your door, that was the big moment. My high school coach was a huge Penn State guy, wanted me to go there. Plenty of people wanted me to go there. And I didn't feel it. I never rooted for them growing up. And then when I got closer to it, I didn't feel it. I just thought I wanted to go somewhere different, knowing that a lot of guys had gone there and been very, very successful. You can't argue with the success they had when I was growing up. But when you go there, like, this idea, I mean, you've called a whiteout game, right?
Yeah.
And it's really, really good. It's great. But to me, with everybody getting beat over the head so many times and being in this area now where I'm just south of it in Maryland, I'm just like, you people haven't gone other places. There are numerous places that are better than that. And I think the idea of the whiteout, they're redoing the stadium, the structure, like that stadium needs a lot of work. In the facilities from that standpoint. So I agree with you. Top 10, I can make an argument for, but nowhere near top 5. I don't see it being that. And there's this, culture of you had this storied program and an era before that, and I kind of feel like that shadow is still overhanging. And when you come in, you got to have somebody that has to, I believe you had to have been a head coach when you're looking for the new guy. I think the program and what it is. I mean, you're around these guys every week. They're CEOs, man. The amount of meetings they go, and that's why you have to have these defensive and offensive coordinators to worry about the stuff on the field, because it's a 24/7 job. So there's plenty of guys that want it. There's no doubt about that. But when you start looking at these teams that have won national championships recently, I don't think they're in that tier.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of really good programs that historically wouldn't necessarily be as attractive, but with the access to resources, they become much more attractive. I mean, I look at programs like Texas Tech, for example. Would I put it ahead of Penn State? No. But with all the money they have at their disposal, it makes it a little more of a compelling conversation. So I think they're top 15 for sure, top 10 close, if not in. But I'd probably lean towards having them in just because I'm a history guy. Looking at possible contenders to take the job, everyone's going to say the usual suspects. Kurt Cignetti at Indiana. Matt Rule at Nebraska. You're going to get some people pushing hard for Matt Campbell at Iowa State. Where do you think this coaching search will lead? And we'll see if you say the name that I'm thinking it's going to go. But let me know which way you think this thing goes.
Well, first of all, I think with this new day and age we're in, Greg, it's going to be really hard to get a coach that's in the playoff. I mean, the window that extends now for that coach trying to win a national championship, coinciding with what you got to do to get your program up and running, I think that's really hard. So the Cignetti deal, I think, is a lot harder. And knowing what Indiana's done already financially and getting players and paying, I mean, they paid their defense coordinator twice in a couple months, I believe, since January to stay. They've matched people's offers. The strength coach, I believe, got offers out there, and they went and matched that. So I don't believe the Cignetti thing can happen. I mean, here's the one deal. He is a Pennsylvania guy, so I don't know what his ties are there. I don't think he ever coached there. So I don't buy that one. And like I said, if you're going to go coordinator that hasn't been a head coach, the one guy that's going to pop, but he already said no to your defense coordinator job, was D'Anton Lynn. He played there. So the Campbell and Rule stuff makes sense to me. I don't believe both those teams are going to the playoff or either of them. The guy who I would go after, who already has, dealings with this Adidas thing, and people want to talk about that. I wonder with Mike Elko being a Jersey guy, if he would leave A&M to go to Penn State. I think the world of him as a person, especially as a coach, and seeing how he's handled the craziness that comes with College Station. I think it's been really, really impressive. That's the guy I would test the waters with, and then go from there as you look down the list. But I think it has to be a head coach or has had head coaching experience for sure.
Yeah, Mike Elko's interesting. There's no way he's leaving A&M. The pockets are too deep, and he's done too good a job. They'll never let him walk. Just throwing it out there. Remember the name Pat Fitzgerald. Just saying, remember the name. With what transpired, and he got paid actually by Northwestern because of how that all went down. He's available, as Big Ten experience, as did more with less for a very long time, which is the exact opposite of what James Franklin did. He did less with more. So we'll see what happens, but that's a name, by the way. Little nugget. Keep it in.
I love it.
The piggy
Great call
bank.
by you, as always. Ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Always ahead of the curve.
Yeah, they're always trying to be. Let's get into some of the games this weekend. I think the interesting game on Friday night is a real one that's worth talking about. And if we're having this conversation a couple weeks ago, I'd sit there saying, no, Louisville he's against Miami. Like, Miami's a war daddy. Like, I don't know. But I think Jeff Brum's scheme can cause some problems. I'm not saying they get the outright win. Like, is there any reason why Miami should be concerned this week?
Absolutely. When you look at what Miami's done, I mean, being down there, was it week 3 or 4? I mean, Mario was already talking about the rat poison, right? Like, we can't believe all this, shine we're getting and compliments and stuff like that. And I remember we were in Tuscaloosa last year for that Virginia Tech game. That was a Friday night that I still can't believe that call happened, and Miami wins and keeps moving forward. But you know what happens this time of year. The great ones make adjustments. The great ones get more tape. They get more film on your tendencies. And Heatherman's been unbelievable, as good a coordinator hire as there's been this season. But I think the world of Brom as a play caller. I think Miller Moss is more than capable to hang in there. He's played in big games before. And I just look at, in this playoff era, all you can ask for is opportunity. You get more opportunities. There might not be a bigger opportunity for Louisville. And that's where the really good kids, players, coaches really shine, when they know they have that opportunity and they know they have a good plan and they attack it. So I think Louisville is a very, very scary, especially looking ahead for Miami, there's not much left that can test them like Louisville does. So, yeah, I believe they should be on full upset alert.
If Louisville does knock them off miraculously, I do think it's possible. I think it's a thin and narrow route. Mm-hmm. What does that do to the perception of the ACC?
Oof. It hurts, because I was thinking, we're in this. I read the thing this morning from our analytics team. Like, say the SEC right now, it's 90% to get 4 teams in to the playoff. But when you start looking at that, you got to look at the Big 12 as Texas Tech starts to take a step forward and Miami starts to take steps forward to an undefeated season. You better hope, if you're one of those, those 4 teams trying to get in from the SEC or the Big 10 possibly, that these 2 teams do run the table. Yeah. Because you can't have that conference champion go, and then Miami's going to get in if they only have 1 loss. Their resume's fine. You look what they did out of conference is good, and that resume is going to speak volumes. Is way more than it did last year when they were trying to make the argument. So the perception would, in a way, it looks, deeper. But when you have minimal teams at the top and you're really, really top heavy, like the ACC and the Big 12 are, and kind of what the Big 10 is leaning to, you need your top dogs to show out. So in the big picture, it would hurt. It would hurt it because the middle tier and the bottom tier of the ACC has no business being in the tier of say, the SEC middle tier.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I'll be curious to see how it all works out in the ACC. I think there is a gap between Miami and everybody else, but I'm not sold yet on Georgia Tech. I do think they have a tricky one this week, by the way, at Duke. I think that's one I'd be very careful if I were the Yellow Jackets. I think Duke's live dog in that one, especially at home. Looking at Saturday's slate, it's off the charts. We'll start where you guys will be. Mm-hmm. That is Ole Miss at Georgia. Last week, Ole Miss kind of plays with their food. I liked Washington State's plan, by the way. It's actually a very nice-looking plan. They ran the ball pretty well. They got hat on a hat. We know Georgia's going to try to pound it. We know they're going to take the air out of the football. Georgia knocks off Ole Miss. What does that mean for Ole Miss, and what does that mean for Georgia?
I think it's a monster step for Georgia because they've been on the cusp here. And, we had our game day call Monday morning. We're going to have Kirby on the show. I'm like, please, somebody ask him what he's doing to address the starts of these games. They're down 2 scores at Auburn, home against Bama. We were there at Tennessee. And you think about how much better they get as the game goes on. And I thought it was pretty telling with Kirby how emotional and crazy he could be on the sidelines. At Tennessee, he was really methodical in his approach. He knows how young his guys are, and it wasn't this screaming and yelling stuff. It was grabbing the iPad and showing them, the difference adjustments they were going to make. And over the course of that game, which was a long-ass game, they start taking away the shallows or the under routes, off the split zone stuff, and they start stymieing Tennessee. Their offense picks it up. So I think it would show that they belong because they kind of been teetering, and everybody, is going to talk about how close they were to losing games. If Ole Miss loses, it's kind of like they're back to where they were last year. We want, all you had to do was go to Gainesville. Don't lose to the worst team in the league last year. And now you start wondering, because when they've had these opportunities, Georgia's taken it to them in Athens. And I think it says a lot with Trinidad at quarterback and kind of a new regime and a new group with how much their roster changes, to being able to go on the road and prove, hey, we could win a game like this. Georgia's not what they have been in years past, where we got them. Ole Miss had the advantage last year of line play, and they got the job done, and they got a huge win. But now you got to go do it on the road. So that's what I'm still iffy on. I want to see it from Ole Miss, and that's why this matchup's so good, because you know what you're getting with Georgia. I feel like I know what I'm getting with Georgia now, as long as they figure out the beginning of the games. But Ole Miss is the one I still want to see a little bit more. I mean, going toe-to-toe with LSU the way they did, I was impressed with what they had up front. I didn't think they had those guys had that tenacity, but they did it, and now you got to go do it on the road, which is a whole different animal, as we know.
I think it's a tough matchup for Ole Miss, even though they did such a great job last week. Yeah. I think it's a very tough matchup. We'll see if they can hang, because they got to stop the run, and I do think Georgia's offensive line, albeit work in progress, will at some point find themselves. You just got to hope it's not the week that you're playing them. Speaking of offensive lines that have yet to find themselves, Oklahoma. They're struggling. Last week was a tough watch for them, struggling running the football. Mateer got hit a bunch. He was not his accurate self. They go to South Carolina this week against another really formidable defensive front. So if Oklahoma goes and loses 2 in a row with a brutal stretch of games coming against Ole Miss, Bama, Tennessee, Mizzou, and LSU still on the schedule, what does that mean for Oklahoma moving forward?
Yeah, it's a monster spot. You brought up the stretch that they have, and that's what all the people did not have them making the playoff pointed to, was this back-ended schedule. And now you go on the road after just a tough deal. I thought, when I thought about that matchup last week with Oklahoma, I picked Oklahoma because the unit I trusted the most was the defense. And then you have Sark backed into a wall with an absolute no other way to do it but just roll your sleeves up and go get a win against a physical football team. And I thought Sark was awesome. Hearing him talking to people on the staff just about, they probably made some mistakes with the Florida game plan and trying to take deep shots, like not having the time for Arch to sit there in the pocket. And now he comes out and he goes, 21 completions, not crazy yardage, but you could tell Arch had a way better feel in this game amidst chaos, because that's what Oklahoma does. And then I just wonder about Oklahoma putting all their eggs in that basket because of their hatred for Texas and knowing how big that game is in that area. You grew up there. You know how big it is, but I feel like Oklahoma might have gotten in their feelings because is how long is Mateer going to be? He didn't look right. You could tell he hadn't played. Venables says he didn't go good on good. And talking to Coach Saban, all week, I'm like, would you start a quarterback that hasn't had first team reps? And he's like, I couldn't see myself doing that. And then you see, he just wasn't effective. He wasn't the normal Mateer. I thought the pick before half was absolutely brutal because the way that game goes, 9 points might win it. If you go up 9-3, that's 2 scores. You don't know. So now moving forward, how do you get up off the deck? This is what great coaching staffs do. You know what's still at stake. You know the goal of the playoff is still there. But you got to get up off the deck and go to a tough place to play with a team that I just watched go toe-to-toe with LSU and has been in some fight games. I mean, they went where'd they go? They went Vandy, toe-to-toe with them. And so South Carolina they know they're on the cusp of their season. They could get right back on track. So that's the beauty of the SEC, man. I really think Oklahoma has to figure out a way, maybe from what Texas did against them, is the short throws. Use those as runs if you can't run block, because you have talent in the guys you get the ball to, including your quarterback that can run it. So I think it's adjusting the plan and just getting away from negative plays, which really puts you in the worst way possible, because you're in insufficiencies and run the football.
Yeah, it's brutal there. They feel so one-dimensional. It feels like it's all through one player.
Yeah.
And that's a tough way to live. I mean, you see it in South Carolina, you see it in a handful of places, by the way. If it's so much on the quarterback's shoulders, man, it's hard to sustain any level of play, because if he has a weirdly off day, then you're in a tough spot. You look at Tennessee, Bama. Bama right now, I think, is playing as well as anybody. I actually thought last week their performance against Mizzou, that game could have been decided earlier than it was, but they just couldn't quite finish. But there were also moments in which that game could have gone the other way if Bama doesn't have some pivotal conversion. So how good is Alabama right now? And what do we currently make of Tennessee, who's gotten by all three conference opponents they've played, but they've been very, very close. Or excuse me, they lost to Georgia, but all three of their games in conference play have been really, really down to the wire.
Yeah, they're all field goal games. Or no, sorry, Mississippi State was a touchdown in overtime, and then you leave that back door open for pesky Arkansas to come in last week. Bama is in the upper tier of teams in the whole sport right now with what they're bringing to the table. I think Ty has been remarkable in improvements. I liked what I saw, him trying to still scramble and fight for yards in that fourth quarter at Florida State in a game that wasn't going to go their way. And then to see him take the steps, I also really like the toys he has to play on offense. That receiver group is really, really good. I mean, you get 11 in the mix this week. I mean, Horton, they didn't have him for that Florida State game. He's been a difference maker. And obviously you got Ryan and Bernard that make it as elite as there is in the sport. So this stretch for Alabama has they haven't proven more to me, but I think more of them because of what they've done in this stretch. Because, I mean, you call the Vandy game, that game's in flux, man. Like, Vandy's going up and down the field that first half, and those were some old Nick Saban football teams in Alabama. When your back's up against the goal line, you got to get a stop, and they get turnovers. And that was – you could feel it coming, and they stay – because, against Florida State, whatever what people want to say with their screenshots and the effort, whatever – they weren't giving in against Vandy. And I get it. It's Vanderbilt, but this isn't your dad's Vanderbilt. Like, this team goes toe-to-toe with anyone up front. And to see Alabama pull that out and then go on the road in Missouri's Super Bowl and win a game, be up double digits in the fourth quarter says a lot to me. The issue with Tennessee is coming out of that Georgia game, I'm like, wow, Tennessee's going to be here. They're going to be a factor in this conference. And to your point, they've kind of taken they haven't backpedaled, but there's a couple steps they've taken backwards on the defensive end. I still wonder if they're ever going to get these corners back, because if they do, that shores up a ton on the defensive side. They're exactly what they need, because their weakness is their secondary. So I don't like the matchup for Tennessee in this game because of the toys I mentioned that Ty has to play with against that secondary, and you're in Tuscaloosa. Aguiar's got to be, an A++ game for Tennessee to pull this out.
They got to run the ball well, too. I mean, I think some of their misdirection, some of their tempo might help them. But I do think at the end of the day, if they can't run the ball well, which will be, by the way, Mizzou came in averaging 300 yards a game on the ground, and Bama did a good job of corralling that unit, albeit with one run that was big. Mm-hmm. So I think that's big. Tennessee thrives on explosive plays in the run game. So if they can kind of limit that, that'll be interesting. Going to be a fascinating game. Can't wait to watch it. One of my favorite rivalries in all of college football. I get SC and Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I, for one, feel like the entire world is continuing to sleep on SC. I don't know what is taking people such a long time to get on board. Like, they're a top 10 team to me. Like, all right, you lose a 9 a.m. start at Illinois, and by the way, had about your D- game, and you had the lead with a minute to play. Like, I mean, yeah, they go on the road to South Bend. I think Notre Dame is back for sure with what they've done the last few weeks, but this is a tough one for me to handicap when I look at Notre Dame laying north of a touchdown. So how do you kind of see this one playing out? And in the event, and is this a college football playoff elimination game, I guess, so to speak?
Yeah, it has to be for Notre Dame. I think every game for Notre Dame. Looking at the math, I'm terrible at math, but the analytics.
And you went to where? Where'd you go to school?
Yeah, I went to Stanford. One Prob stat class. That's all I needed in the communications major. Thank God. So it's 50% they're at if they go 10-2. Now a lot could change, but that's got to be the goal. You can't have any other slip ups. I just think the story here is, to your point, SC. You had them in the playoff right before the year.
Yeah, but I mean,
nice call. And good call.
Part of me was a little bit down on seeing some of their busts in the back end defensively against Michigan State. Then there were a couple more issues, a couple mistakes made in the Illinois game. And I'm like, all right, well, this team's going to just kind of bite themselves. So I kind of even got off of myself. And then they put it all together against Michigan. It's like, all right, that's what I want to see.
Correct.
The football, you got a playmaker at quarterback, you got playmakers at wide receiver. It's like, that's the team I expected. And I think that might be the team that we see going forward. That's what I'm having a hard time with. Like, was last week who they are, or was last week just a high point in what is a 12-game season?
Well, the SC mantra right? I mean, playing them when I was in college, and it's still the case. We're never going to be as talented, and a lot of teams aren't going to be in the old Pac-12 as talented as them. But what they showed last week was a lot to me, because there's a lot of stuff that you got to deal with when you play Michigan. You got to deal with physicality on the line of scrimmage. You got to deal with all the crap they pull at the whistle where your ball carriers are going down. They're punching at the ball. They get away with hits right on the sideline where the guys are. There's just a lot of stuff that Michigan does to try and get in your head. And SC just kept pressing forward. They had a chance to blow that game open. If McCree doesn't fumble that ball, they go up on 2 or 3 scores. And then, Michigan goes down, they score, and then SC comes right back. I think the 2 receivers are incredible. I love what Lincoln how he gets the ball to them. They run deep balls. They use the middle of the field, and in the screen game is awesome. How creative they are in the screen game, even getting the tight ends involved in those middle screens, I think is such a head scratcher for defensive guys, because you got to figure out where you're sending guys and where you're helping out. They showed me a ton in that win against Michigan, knowing what Michigan brings to the table and how much of a pain in the butt they could be. But now you got to have that attitude. Like you always knew when you got SC at your place, start fast, and maybe they'll die down a little bit. Maybe they won't have the foot on the gas in the second half if we go up a couple scores. But you got Notre Dame with foot on the gas and backs against the wall. So this is a great matchup. I was bummed to see Waymo go down with that ankle. That kid has been as good of a story as there been. You don't see many JUCO guys, but seeing him start the season the way he did, and D'Anton Lynn has done a great job with the defense. I've read, I think it was, I didn't know until after the Illinois game, but they didn't have Ramsey, who I think is their best defensive player on the back end. He got like food poisoning against Illinois. So Illinois took advantage of that, threw it all over the yard. And to your point, SC still had the lead, fourth quarter, had to get a stop. They couldn't get it. So this seems like a lot of points, but it is a night game. It is South Bend, and Carr has been absolutely fantastic. So, wow, over-under in the 60s. This sets up to be a super, super exciting game, which I can't wait to see.
Yeah, I can't wait for it either, man. It's going to be awesome. We always appreciate your time, brother. I know you're getting ready to head to the airport, so thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to visiting again real soon, bud.
You got it, my man.
That'll do it for us here at Always College Football. Really appreciate you guys being here again. Check out our preview show that'll be released here very, very soon, previewing all the incredible games that we have coming up here in Week 8. Because, gosh, guys, it is a ridiculously good slate this week. I know you guys are going to love it. It's that good. I promise you, it is that good. So for all of us here at Always College Football, for Mark, Jake, Jack, the other Jack, intern Sam, I'm Greg. And shout out to Rochelle, who's also joining the show today. She's helping us out as well. So appreciate everyone for being here. We look forward to being back with you here in a couple days to preview what should be an amazing Week 8. For all of us here at ACF, we hope you have an amazing day. And remember, it's always college football. Hey guys, it's Greg McElroy. Thanks for watching Always College Football. Make sure you like, rate, and subscribe to ESPN's YouTube channel and wherever you listen to your podcasts.